And welcome you to the October 11th, 2016 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So, do we have any proposed amendments to tonight's agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to propose that Sharon King and Associates be allowed to make a presentation tonight.
Okay. Would you propose that in
Under
business items or?
Presentation.
Okay.
Number 5.
Under 5. Okay. Is there a second?
Sharon King.
Is that Fathoms of Fun? Is
Yes.
there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we've got presentation A, Fathoms of Fun. Any other proposed amendments to tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Agenda? Hearing none. All in favor of the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. The agenda is approved. We are to citizens' comment. This is our first citizens' comment period, and these are for items that are currently on the agenda. And if you're here to speak in the public hearing, that's later in the agenda also. So are there any comments out there? Yes, Mr. Whittleton.
Wilton. Item 7B, the approving the amendment for the Shoreline Master Program. You know, I don't have a problem with this. What I have a problem with is part of the write-up states that talks about financial feasibility of development. The financial feasibility of a development is that's the guy that's developing its thing to worry about, not the city. If somebody wants to pay too much for a piece of property that costs them way too much to develop, I think that's their problem, and it shouldn't appear anywhere in the city's verbiage.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Anyone else wish to comment? Seeing none, we'll close the first public comment period. We're on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A second on the consent agenda. Any discussion of the consent agenda? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. The consent agenda is approved. We are on to our presentation for Fathoms of Fun. Ms. King.
Thank you for allowing that on the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor and council members. Once again, we're coming back to try and bring the carnival back to Port Orchard for the Fathoms of Fun 50th anniversary in 2017. We have been in contact with Butler Amusements again, and they have forwarded a request to the city, which I have a copy of. I don't think you haven't got that yet, but I would like to read the email that they sent to me, which they also sent to Brandy. This letter will serve as our request for approval to hold a carnival in Port Orchard scheduled for July 6th through the 9th, 2017 at 901 Bay Street. The operating hours will be Thursday, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., Friday, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sunday, noon to 10. The carnival will consist of approximately 11 amusement rides, approximately 6 game concessions and a food concession. The carnival will set up July 5th and 6th, 2017, and tear down on July 9th, 2016. I have talked to Gary Anderson of the Anderson Group, who is the one that's selling the Wilkins property, and Gary has asked Roger Jensen if we could use that area as a staging area, of which Roger did say that we could. So my plan is to go down there on Monday when Gary gets back in town and take photos of the area where the trucks can and cannot park so that I could forward that to Butler as another avenue to get this ball rolling. Butler says, we do a cleanup of the entire carnival area after each day's operation, as well as a final cleanup of the area prior to our departure. Butler Amusements is a highly qualified carnival company with 45 years of experience serving major fairs in the western United States, as well as major celebrations, shopping malls, or other events. We employ approximately 25 full-time employees on site for carnival operation. They will also provide waste dumpsters and portable toilets for their use as well as the public, and all necessary permits and licenses will be acquired prior to their operation. The area in the carnival zone will also have adequate lighting from rides and games. They will operate a cellular phone in their office area, which will allow emergency contact. Their supervisors carry portable radios at all times and have immediate contact with the base station located in their unit office. In the event of an emergency, they can contact someone near the phone and get a quick response. The on-site manager is Bob Merton, and I met with Bob Merton last week to review what we were planning to propose at the meeting tonight. And he can be reached on his cell phone, and they list that. And so they have provided the event request to the city once again. And because it is a 4th of July kind of a week, hopefully there would be a lot of shipyard workers that might be on vacation, and the displacement of those shipyard workers might not be as great as it was when we came back before, which, as most of you know, it was totally cost prohibitive for Fathoms to move and relocate at least 100 shipyard cars. And so we were hoping that the city would reconsider the opportunity to bring the carnival back again to Port Orchard to help us celebrate our wonderful 50th anniversary. We're planning a lot of big things. We are bringing back the Dinghy Derby, and applications are online. We're going to challenge all of the service clubs and real estate offices and businesses galore to build their Dinghy Derby, as well as anyone in the audience that we challenge them to do the same thing. So I'm going to have Helene address the area of our petition that we did to remind you that people want the carnival back. And then also Al Mahaney is in traffic, and he was going to review the survey that we did last summer to bring it back. And so Helene, if you would come up.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm just going to reiterate the enthusiasm that the community has to bring the carnival back into town. Last year when I did this petition, all I was able to get, just because of time, was I got 200 signatures, and these people would have signed it 20 times if they could have, because they wanted to have the carnival back. And if I would go out today, I could probably get 200 more, probably within just a few hours, because everyone I speak with literally wants to have the carnival back. This carnival is a great carnival. Like I mentioned before, it's clean. The people that work there are required to have showers. And it sounds funny, but some carnivals, they're grease monkeys, and these guys are required to be neat and clean and very cordial to the people that we want to entertain. Their way that they do all of their plug-ins and wirings are all very, very neat. I mean, literally you can see where the cord goes, and it goes right into a really clean outlet. The generators, what they call this quiet generator, so it's not going to create a lot of noise for downtown. As far as the vendor, or not the vendors, but the downtown merchants, they were mostly 100% into wanting the carnival back. They were excited over the idea of having the carnival back for downtown. They felt it would help business, and then they were excited just to see something that was an old staple of Port Orchard coming back again. I think it would be a positive move for the city to consider having us to have something that's been around for so many years. And the idea of bringing it back, I think, would create a lot of excitement back into the city.
And the other purpose for bringing the carnival back in, as you all know, it takes a lot of money to do fireworks. And because it's our 50th, we really want to put on a big show for our 50th birthday party for Port Orchard over Sinclair Inlet. So the proceeds from the carnival will go directly to the fireworks fund. Any questions from any of you? I think last year, before you speak, Fred, last year I did up a collage of pictures that had Butler Amusement pictures on it, that Helene and I went to Port Angeles and over to Federal Way and took those pictures of the carnival, and I would represent those again to you so that Brandy could have them in the packet that Butler has sent out if you would like those pictures again. Fred?
What's the ballpark that you expect that the amusements would raise for the fireworks?
Since it's been so long since we've had a carnival here, I really couldn't tell you that. I know that prior carnivals used to raise us between $7,000 and $10,000. Then we were not able to have the carnival come for a long time, as you well know, and so that's why Fathom started the vendor shows, because the vendor shows would bring us in between $4,000 and $6,000 to help us fund just paying for our insurance and taking our float to different places. So I'm guessing that somewhere between maybe 5 and 7, I would love to offer that, because we have a contract that we have to sign with Butler Amusements, sharing some of the expenses that we have to do. So we share expenses in some of those areas. But I know that Bob Merton loves Port Orchard. He first called us and said, I can come over your parade weekend, which is the last Saturday weekend in June. However, Rich Bynum, the owner in California, already had promised Arlington they could have the carnival 2 weekends back to back, which is our weekend and the 4th of July weekend. And Bob said that he would work really hard with Rich, because Arlington was only on a 1-year contract with them, that he would work really hard to bring it back in 18 over parade weekend and the 4th of July for 2018. So that's kind of the target goal eventually that we would like. Any other questions?
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for allowing us the time.
Okay, at this time we'll be heading into an executive session. It's a collective bargaining discussion pursuant to RCW 40.30.140 with possible action. We'll be in executive session for 10 minutes. He is in the process. We're going to take action on 2 collective bargaining agreements, and Brandy's writing out some instructions for us.
We should switch P&A.
You can see government.
Yeah.
St. Martin's is where, not when I was in high school, my sisters were in high school. I went to back-to-back state championships, and the championships were at St. Martin's.
The other ones.
Just go ahead and give him the back. I'll take a copy.
So that's the full motion, and you can just substitute the 2 highlight dates for the second motion.
Oh, okay.
Can I have one copy? Can I have one copy? One off the bottom.
Triple pick. Give him the pink copy.
I don't know that you can read it.
Does that say mayor's copy?
Councilmember Ashby, do you wish to make a motion?
Yes, I do. I would move that the council approve the collective bargaining agreement between the city with the Port Orchard Police Guild retroactive from January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2018.
I second it.
Motion and a second.
I think she was going to continue one more sentence representing the,
Representing the police guild, representing the patrol officers.
Representing, yes.
I second it.
You still second it?
Yeah,
Okay. Any discussion
second time.
of that motion? Hearing none, we're voting to approve the collective bargaining agreement retroactive to January 1st, running to December 31st of 2018. That was January 1st of 2016 for the Police Guild's contract. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Do you have a second motion?
I do. I move that the council approve the collective bargaining agreement between the city of Port Orchard with the police guild retroactive from January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2008, representing the sergeant employees.
Second.
A second. So the second motion is as it pertains to similar contract for the Sergeants Guild. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Right. We are on to our first of two public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is on our revenue sources current expense budget for 2017-2018 and satisfying the requirements of RCW 8455-120. Treasurer Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Patonsu, members of the Port Orchard City Commission. And we have a PowerPoint presentation tonight. The city legislative body is required to hold a revenue sources hearing on current expense budget revenue sources for the upcoming year's budget, including consideration of possible increases in property tax revenues. The hearing is required before the legislative body votes on property tax levy for the upcoming year. The deadline for setting the levy for property tax collection for 2017 is on or before November 30th, 2016. This hearing is part of a public process that leads to an ordinance being forwarded to the Kitsap County Assessor along with a levy certification in order to set the property tax levy for collection in the 2017 tax year. The hearing will include a PowerPoint presentation of revenue sources and estimates for 2017-2018. Handouts will be available tonight as meeting, and I believe you have a copy. The hearing relates to setting the 2017 levy for property tax collection in the first year of the 2017-2018 budget. Property tax collection for the second year of the biennium will require a 2017 hearing and ordinance setting the levy for property tax collection for 2018. The current expense budget means that budget which is primarily funded by taxes and charges and reflects the provisions of ongoing services. It does not mean the capital, enterprise, or special assessment budgets. So I would ask that we open the public hearing. The best part of my presentation is my pointer, so here it is. We could go to the next slide.
Can we turn Mr. Martin's microphone up just a little bit?
Hello?
Or maybe move
Hello?
it over.
All right.
Can you hear me fine?
You were just a little tough.
Really?
it's not very loud.
That's not like me at all.
There you go. Now we got
There
you.
you go. So, as I mentioned, this is a requirement of the RCWs, and as I mentioned, the current expense budget means that budget, which is primarily funded by taxes and charges, and reflects the ongoing service of the city, and it's not the capital, enterprise, or special assessment budgets. This is the first time we've moved through this on a biennial budget. This is the same presentation that some of you have enjoyed over the past several years that I've had the opportunity to present. This year we've combined the last 2 years into one column to compare on a biennial budget, even though we didn't have a biennial budget, but for comparison purposes, I've done that as we go through this. And then you'll see the revenues for 2017 and 2018 displayed as well. So total taxes, this is the tax revenue that the city would receive over the biennial budget. We refer to it as a three-legged stool, but you can see over the past several years, the sales tax portion of our tax has become greater and greater. So about half of our half of the taxes collected by the city is coming from our sales tax portion of our collections. The other is the property tax portion there, which is a little bit, as you can see, is in the pink shade. And then there's other taxes that will be listed on the next slide. So that makes up the tax revenue. Thank you. What we have here is the retail sales and use tax. It's shown in 2017 and 2018. That's our projection over the coming biennium, which makes up, as I mentioned, just a little bit less than 50%. The column right here is a percent of budgeted tax, so that's that portion of the tax. The projection on the we can go back to the other one. The percentage right here is calculated at approximately 5.2% over this last period of time that we've had, and then the 2018 is considered to go up about 4.2% over that. And that comes from the Puget Sound forecaster calculations, which is available that we purchase and use for our projections. We round down a little bit where if we have a decision point, the city's always had a conservative budget, and we continue that practice even through these budget numbers here. Typically, when we do the annual report over the 7 years I've been doing this, we find that our revenues come in are about 2% higher than what we've always budgeted. That's pretty much close to the number. And then our actual expenses are somewhere between 7 to 9% under budget, depending on the year. So very conservative budgeting practices here for the city, and it served the city well. The other
Martin,
yes.
Good question here for you.
Just, is that correct in 2018 under the property taxes that you're projecting a decrease in property tax income? Or is that a typo?
It is smaller.
It's a slight decrease.
The math adds.
I'd have to go back and see that. Those numbers are coming out of the assessor's office. I'll have to go. When we get to other slides, we'll look at that, Sean. So anyway, there's the we'll go back and review that. But anyway, you can see the total there. About 30% is going to be property tax for the biennial period. The other taxes are the taxes on utility, which is electrical, telephone, utilities tax, garbage, TV tax, natural gas, gambling, emissions, and leasehold excise tax that the city receives. Now, in the budget, I would point out that you can see an increase in from 2017 to 2018 in the natural gas. There's a proposal within the preliminary budget that you would increase the natural gas to what the other tax rates are on an equity basis. That would take that tax to 6%. All of these then would be at 6% and equal, if you will. And the natural gas, the way it is collected is you have to be notifying the utility by November 1st of the period of time to collect it in the coming year. So the first opportunity the city would actually have to collect any revenue from the utility would be in 2018 if you did pass an increase to the natural gas. And then, of course, the state collects the tax and transmits it to the city. It takes 60 days for that process. So the first time you'd see any money from that tax, if it was raised today, would be March of 2018. This is a chart that shows total revenue from all sources. So you have the sales tax, you've got the property tax, you have this section here are those taxes, the utility taxes we just talked about. And then this little piece down here is what this slide shows, and this makes up other taxes. So this would be license and permits would be here. Then you have the intergovernmental pieces, that's grants that we receive. There's charges for services, fees, fines, and forfeitures, and then miscellaneous revenues make up another $3.4 million. So the total revenue, all sources for the general fund, current expense would be $21,900,000. That's over a biennial period. That'd be over 2 years. This is a breakdown of those amounts to just give you some idea what the different amounts were, and so this is just a depiction of the actual breakdown of those amounts, and the relevant part is, of course, the portion here.
Question, where did you put lodging tax?
The lodging tax is not a part of the general fund. It'd be, it's a special revenue, it's,
Special assessments?
yeah, well, it's a special revenue fund. It's Fund 107. This would be, these two funds would be Fund 001 and 002, basically the current expense in the street fund.
Yes, Mr. Diener?
You don't have to go back a slide, but I was just curious what admissions tax is.
That's a tax that, it's like a ticket tax. If you go to the theater, there's a
Okay.
ticket there. There's a tax on that ticket.
Okay. Thank you.
It doesn't include school events or nonprofits, just commercial enterprise.
And we've
Thank you.
got an ordinance on the books that dedicates that funding to recreation activities in parks.
Okay. Thank you.
Gets into more of the property tax portion. The real statutory requirement tonight is to really get to setting the property tax levy that we'll have more discussion about. And this shows the assessed valuation of the city over the last, since 2013, up to what the projected amount from the assessor's office. And so the assessed valuation's gone from $1.3 billion to $1.5 billion in that period of time. So that's a pretty good increase. Of course, the economy's come back, and of course, we've had new construction. So that speaks well for the city. The levy rates here are a function of not only the assessed valuation growth, but also whether or not the other taxing districts that we are included with take their full levy amount. There's a total of $3.60 per thousand in the category we're in, and included with us is the fire district and the library. And so that $3.60 is spread between those two districts, so three districts. So if in fact the library doesn't take its full amount, which is 50 cents per thousand, and the fire district didn't take its $1.50 for the $2, our minimum levy is $1.60. But if there's extra capacity, then that levy amount goes to the city. Now, one of the things that the mayor's talked with you about is doing identifying one-time revenues so that we can have those funds. In a perfect world, would have any one-time revenue, not really buying the groceries, if you will. We would actually, that wouldn't be paying for your everyday services. We would put that money towards capital projects and one-time expenses. So in fact, if that money went away, it wouldn't impact, your basic city services. So what we've looked at is if in fact the city's will always be entitled to $1.60 per thousand, but in the case that I showed you, we've been getting about $1.74 or $1.75 per thousand. How much is that, portion would have to be considered a one-time revenue? In other words, that amount over $1.60 could go away. And that's about $230,000 to $240,000 a year is actually collected over and above what that ever. So during the budget process, we'll talk more about identifying those one-time revenues and allocating them to one-time expenses. This is just a bar chart to show what our taxes have been over since 2013. And this is a function of the assessed valuation and also whether or not the other districts were taking their full amount of the levy. And that's why you see this swoop up. This piece here is really about economic increases due to your property tax rates, or excuse me, your assessed valuations. This is a property tax comparison between 2016 and 2017. This goes back to just a yearly depiction because we're not able to have a revenue hearing for 2018, so I'm back to comparing apples to apples. You can see what was levied. The levy amount in 2015 is where you start. You get an increase that is calculated by the assessor. You get new construction comes on as a new dollar amount. Any refunds that you receive back through a state process. So we get this year our collections were $2,458,000, and so that's our highest lawful levy in 2016. So in 2017, you start with that amount. What is the rate that you're able to receive over and above, calculated by the assessor? That's $191,000 in additional revenue that we didn't have in this year. That 7.78% represents what total percentage is this is of that last year's levy. That's what that's depicting. So it's the percentage of the increase within what you collected beforehand. It's not necessarily, it's not the 1%. New construction, $46,000 of new construction income, and then refunds this year will be $3,600. So we're looking at a collection of $2,699,059 paid property tax. Equally important to the city is the sales tax, and of the 1% that is collected locally, 0.15% goes to the county, 0.01% goes to the Department of Revenue to manage the tax, leaving the city with 0.84% of the sales tax. So that's the city's portion when you're at Fred Meyer's. This is the sales tax collection actual in 2014 and 2015. You can see it's had a strong growth. In 2016, you can see what our actual is. Of course, we've got 3 months to go in the year. We're ahead of ourselves by 7.87%. That seems to be true across the state. Is pretty much up in all of our retail areas. Now, this is an amount against what we budgeted. Depending on what other cities determined and budgeted, you might see the percentage a little bit different, but all of the revenues up across the board for sales tax. In 2017, as I mentioned, we've got a calculation there based on what we think sales will grow and off of the Forecast Council, and also on 2018. So very strong retail sales tax right at the moment. This is a sales tax received by month, and what's important here to see is you can see by month, like if we go through January, you can see that it's moved up right on through on all cases. And so it just is each month from 2014 right on through, we've seen a good, strong growth overall. And this chart just shows that there's a very predictable pattern. Here's Christmas distributions coming in after Christmas shopping. So you can just see that Christmas shopping that comes up through this period of time. And then it drops off in March, and you get this. It's always interesting. You'll see it starts up in May, June, and July, and kind of peaks in August, and then starts down a little bit. Very predictable pattern, month after month, year after year. So I added a slide. Now this is out. This is kind of like Fred. This is now going back to Fred, looking at a different type of fund. But I put this in because I know there's so much interest for the city council members, because we've worked real hard at looking at revenue sources to do things to help build the city here. And so I've included this slide. These aren't current expense monies, but they impact what we're doing and giving us some other sources. So we have the McCormick Woods transportation piece of impact fee, and you can see what we predicted to receive over the biennium is $203,000 there. We've got the park impact fees. Looks like it'll be about $114,000 over the 2-year period. Transportation impact fees, about $160,000 over that period of time. The Transportation Benefit District, of course, the vehicle license fees will go into effect in January, and then we'll receive them. You can notice that this is the amount that we would consider for a full 12-month period, according to the state data. And then this $152,000 is because it's got that 2-month lag in it. Then there's the REIT funding that we've really maximized here at the city and done so much with. Of course, during the economic downturn, the state legislature opened up the statute that gave cities more opportunity to use that money for more things. They've closed that opportunity now, and we're getting back to more of the traditional use of the REIT money. But the REIT is broken into REIT 1 and 2, 1/4%. So you might ask yourself, well, how come if it's the same percentage, REIT 1 seems to not be growing as fast as REIT 2? Well, they can be used for different things. So their fund balance is different because we've used more of fund REIT 1 than we have of REIT 2. And these numbers include the interest earnings from the fund because that's revenue too to these funds. So that's why it's just not, that's why it's got the difference there because of interest. So anyway, that is a slide that, we didn't have a couple years ago because we didn't have those opportunities. And when we work through the budget process, you'll see where staff working with the mayor have tried to put this money to work and leverage it so we can get some of these projects underway and on time and under budget. And this is the classic W that finance directors and treasurers always seem to worry about. There was a time when the finance committee joined in my worries on this, and we had to really watch our pennies. I think we all did, even in our own homes and lifestyles. But anyway, this is the classic tax cash that we have here at the city. So we've got our low points and our high points, and so what we have to do is make sure on a cash flow basis we always have money set aside to meet our obligations. You can see we get our first half property tax. It peaks right here when we all pay our taxes on the last day of April, and then of course the second half property tax is due in October, and it peaks right there. So
What accounts?
Very predictable.
Yes. Mr. Jeter?
What accounts for the second peak there?
This
Second
one?
half.
Paid twice a year.
I
it's
knew
the
at one
dip.
time. I'll let you know. I don't remember what that is, but it's true all over. I'd have to think back. I can't tell you. So back to your question about the property tax, Sean. That's because we don't have a 2018 number from the assessor's office. So we didn't. That's why it was lower.
Fair enough.
We only had the 2017 number. Now, there's one other thing that's going to come up that I should mention, and some of you will remember this from 2009, and it's a term called the implicit price deflator. And within the property tax statutes in the state of Washington, which has been, by everyone's judgment, probably the most complicated tax system in the country, and I don't just say that lightly, it really is. They have it so that, of course, we've always heard that your taxes won't go up more than 1% over a period of time, and you always wonder how's that really calculated, which is part of the complicated factor. But also there's a second part to that. There's actually property taxes are not to go up 1% or no greater than the implicit price deflator, whatever's less. And in 2009, we had that situation, and the city council at that time struggled with what that all meant. We had the assessor staff here and worked through that. And actually then you can take the 1%, you can take your full amount, but you have to do what's called a substantial need resolution, and then you take your total amount. In 2009, the implicit price deflator was below the 1%, but the city council did do a substantial need ordinance and took the tax levy at 100%, but didn't take the 101%. So in that case, we banked that capacity. At that time, it was a larger number that the city council was dealing with, and you can go back and see the record there and talk to the other members that debated that. The implicit price deflator this year is the lower number, and so the city would need to do a substantial need to take the full 1%, or and that's the situation. Now, this year it's really not that critical because the total amount is $1,200. So, you know, it's not an impact when you consider a $1.5 billion assessed valuation and spread $1,200 across that amount. It really doesn't have the impact to our property levy, property to the homeowners and to business owners that it did as we debated in 2009. Now, I might also mention that it would be my recommendation that the City Council do the substantial need and take the full 101% or the total 1%. And the reason I say that is we will probably most likely need to bond a portion of the Tremont widening project. And as part of that process, we'll need to meet with one of the major rating agencies, most likely Moody's, and we were going to have to make the case that, in fact, the city's put itself in a position that it pledges its full faith and credit to the bondholders to make those payments. So one of the things they'll look at is what is the City Council's opinion on collecting revenues on behalf of the city. Now, I will tell you that Moody's will not turn you down on a rating. They're not going to say, well, we're not going to rate you if you didn't take the $1,200. But they may not give you the highest and best rating that the city can have. And if that were to happen, when you go to the bond market, if you don't have the higher bond rating, then your interest rate on the amount that you borrow goes up. It's just like if we, go to buy a mortgage and we don't have the highest and best credit rating that we have, you may get a home loan, but it might not be the rate that you would really hope to get. So that $1,200 could equate to quite a large cost if our rating wasn't as high as it could be, and so you could actually end up trying to save $1,200, and it'd be hard to calculate, but you could, on a nominal value, end up costing the city and the taxpayers quite a bit more in the debt payment. So that's why I would recommend doing the substantial need and taking the full 1%.
Okay. Questions for Treasurer Martin? Okay. This time I'm going to open the public hearing then and allow comment. So at this time I've opened the revenue sources current expense budget 2017-2018 public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment on our revenue sources here this evening? Going once, going twice. Okay, I don't see anyone wishing to comment, so I will at this time close the public hearing. We are on to the second public hearing this evening. It's a public hearing on vacating a portion of city right-of-way commonly known as Smith Street. Clerk Reinerson?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. Mr. David C. Preston, the petitioner, submitted a petition to vacate a portion of city right-of-way adjacent to 821 Hull Avenue and Smith Street, lots 12 and 13 of Block 8 in the replat of Central Addition to Sydney. The petitioner owns 50% of the property abutting the proposed vacation area, and he obtained the signature of another abutting property owner on the petition. These signatures represent the owners of more than 2/3 of the abutting property as required by RCW 3579.010 and Port Orchard Municipal Code 12.08.010. On September 13, 2016, the Council adopted Resolution Number 62-16, setting a public hearing on this petition to vacate a portion of the city's right-of-way. On September 20th, 2016, the petitioner posted the required public notice, and I placed a copy of the adopted resolution number 62-16 in 3 public places. 1 on the City Hall Bulletin Board, 2 at the Kitsap County Administrative Building Bulletin Board, and 3 at the Port Orchard Library Bulletin Board. On September 19, 2016, notification was mailed to all abutting property owners, notifying them of a petition and the public hearing. These actions meet the required postings and noticing requirements as outlined in RCW 35.79.020 and Port Orchard Municipal Code 12.08.020. As of today, staff has received 1 written objection to this proposed vacation, which has been included in the council's packet this evening. Pursuant to RCW 35.79.020, the council is prohibited from proceeding with the public hearing resolution if 50% of the abutting property owners filed written objection to the proposed vacation with the clerk prior to the time of the hearing. The written objection on file only represents 25% of the abutting property owners, and therefore the council shall proceed with the public hearing. Staff recommends the mayor open the public hearing to take public testimony on the petition to vacate a city of right-of-way commonly known as Smith Street.
This time, I think our city attorney, Sharon Cates, has some instructions for us in regards to this public hearing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We understand that there are some folks in the audience who would like to address this during the public hearing, and we certainly encourage that. It has come to our attention, though, that there's some related information regarding a plat application that has been submitted to the city, and because that is something that is going to be determined by the city, and then if it is going to be appealed, it would be appealed to the city council as a quasi-judicial body. We can't allow the quasi-judicial body to be to take testimony on that subject tonight. So we will have to caution those of you who come up to testify to limit your comments to the street vacation that's being considered tonight.
Okay, so to clarify, if you're wishing to comment here this evening in this public hearing, it's only related to the street vacation. We can't take testimony on the proposed plat amendment that may or may not happen. That's a different process. So just want to clarify that. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter, and I have a sign-up sheet. I'll go through those names first, and then we'll ask for other comments. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing on the vacation of right-of-way commonly known as Smith Street. I have a Mr. David Bryce who has signed up to speak. So, Mr. Bryce?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is David Bryce. This is Julie Helberg. We live at 905 Hull Avenue, abutting Smith Street. We were here to object the vacation of Smith Street as we live on it. We have vested interest on it. It'll also greatly affect our ingress and egress onto the property. We'll go ahead and turn over the more litigious aspect of it to our attorney, Mr. Alan Wallace.
I think some of you are probably tired of hearing from us. So.
Thank you.
So I see you're the third name on here, Mr. Wallace, and Julie, so you've already commented, okay? So I'm going to mark you up. So Mr. Wallace?
Sure, thanks.
Yeah, just go with this as the clerk, and she'll distribute those. Yeah, either way. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Alan Wallace, Land Use Council with Williams Casder. And I'm here tonight to urge you to not deny this right-of-way vacation, both for practical reasons and there are some legal reasons here with regard to sufficiency of the petition and compliance with your criteria for vacating right-of-way. But let me first explain the practical reasons, which I think those really should drive home, most importantly, why you should not approve this right-of-way vacation. And attached with my letter are several pictures at the back and Exhibit 1. And the second picture you can see is a street view of the residence. I'll put this up here. Thanks. So here's a street view of David and Julie's residence, and I had to kind of mark in. Here's the property line right here, and to the rear is the garage structure. So it shows the garage is immediately on the property line, immediately abuts this right of way, and here is an aerial photo, and I apologize, I didn't provide a copy. Let me do this way. So here's an aerial photo of the street vacation. If I had a yellow marker, let's see here. You got something pink? So if I can mark this in pink, here's the vacation area, that whole area. And if you can make out the green line here, I think that shows up fairly well. You can see that the garage, which was an older non-conforming structure, because it doesn't have a setback from the street whatsoever, it's the garage entrance, the two-car garage entrance is right on the property line and abuts this right of way. The important point about this is that as you look at the other picture with that's attached to my letter, you see that the garage is used for boat storage. My clients have two wood classic boats that they store in the garage. And as you see with the picture there with the pickup truck, and I can throw that up here on the screen too real quickly. Helpful. This is one of the pictures, but as you can see with the picture with their pickup truck and be able to haul their 20-foot wood boat in and out of the garage, they need this full width of the right-of-way to be able to get ingress and egress into their garage. And of course, that if the road is vacated, they would get to the center line, but that's only 30 feet. House is built just 5 feet off that side yard, what would then be a side yard setback. And so again, the ability to be able to get their pickup truck and their boats in and out would be greatly impaired. Perhaps they'd have to hire, buy a small tractor or something of that nature, but that shouldn't be necessary because, again, this right-of-way actually is used, has functionality, and is necessary for providing reasonable access into their garage. Now, another point about this garage, too, is that the city just issued a building permit for rebuilding this garage in 2014. So my clients have expended considerable sums in rebuilding this garage and improving it to its current state. And so again, vacating the right-of-way would be contrary to that investment and would impair their investment and would impair the reasonable access to their property. In terms of the city's criteria for right-of-way vacation, I want to go back to this photo here too. So impact upon private property owners and access to the property is a criterion under the city code. Second component of that is that the staff report is to address public utility use of the right-of-way. There is right here a power pole. I was just out at the property this afternoon. So there's a Puget Sound Energy power pole located right here. Now I don't know what your franchise agreement is with PSE. I can tell you, I deal with PSE all too often. They are very difficult to deal with. For all I know is that PSE would tell the city that the city would have to pay the cost of taking out that power pole and removing the electrical utility service from that power pole. Power pole relocation by PSE is tremendously expensive. As your public works director or city engineer can tell you, they don't, as you know, PSE doesn't have any more employees that do this work. It's all through private contractors. So that's a very expensive proposition, and how that impacts the city and the city budget for roads is not addressed by the staff report. In terms of the functionality vacated. And again, these are kind of practical or kind of quasi-legal issues for you to consider here too. I think it's important to note that there are several neighbors here as well. They're not all perhaps willing to come up and testify to you here tonight. But it's apparent to me, being out there and seeing this right of way, that this, and its importance in talking to several of the neighbors, that this is valuable to them as open space. It's a break in the line of homes all along the street face there. It provides visual access to the forested hillside that goes down, I think it's Port Orchard Way, or Boulevard, down below the hillside there. So that's also an appropriate consideration for the council, is that this functions as important open space and green space for the community. Now, going to some of the legalities of this matter, looking at the right-of-way vacation statutes, and they are old statutes, they've been around a long time, but it's very interesting to see that in judging what is the criterion for a legally sufficient right-of-way vacation petition. So it's very interesting to see that, number one, there's no case law on that. That issue has never been decided by the courts as to how do you calculate 2/3. Now, if you look at your staff report, it's at page 2 or 3 of the staff report, first bullet item there, it's very interesting. It says, staff has calculated the size of all 4 abutting property owners' property 3 different ways. Well, they did it 3 different ways because the statute is ambiguous. It doesn't tell you how do you determine the legal sufficiency of a right-of-way vacation petition. They did not calculate it a 4th way, and we believe the 4th way makes the most sense by way of equity, and also makes the most sense in terms of statutory construction, which I'll explain in just a moment. But as you look at the calculation here, the 4th way would be by assessed valuation of the properties affected by the right-of-way vacation. And the reason looking at the assessed valuation makes a lot of sense. Number one, that's the most appropriate measure of equity, which of course the city council must be concerned with. Because if all the properties were alike, if they were all developed, then perhaps going by lineal frontage or square footage would make sense. But these properties are not alike. If you look at assessed valuation, the total assessed valuation of all the properties is $205,000, of which $145,000 is the property of my clients, which is developed with their house and garage. All the other properties are not developed. There's just raw land. So their assessed valuation is $60,000. So 2/3 of $205,000 would require an assessed valuation of $135,000, and they only have $60,000 here. So by that metric, the petition is legally insufficient. In looking at petitions to government by property owners, it's fair to look at the statutes, other statutes, analogous statutes, when you have petitions coming to you as a city council. So if you have a petition coming to you for annexation, the metric for adequacy is assessed valuation. It's not the number, it's not the square footage, it's assessed valuation. The same thing for a local improvement district. If you have property owners coming to you to petition for you to form a local improvement district, the metric is assessed valuation. You need 10% of the assessed valuation of the proposed district to come to you to have a legally sufficient petition. If property owners are mad because the city council formed LID, it takes 40% of the assessed valuation on a petition that then legally unwinds an LID, divests the city of approval to authority to put into effect the LID. So by looking at analogous statutes, the assessed valuation is really the proper measure. And here, where the properties are not alike, where all the other lot owners have lots that are undeveloped, looking at assessed valuation is really the most equitable measure here as well. my last point for you here tonight, and I don't want to focus on the legalities of this so much, but there is, as my letter explains in the last point, there is case law to the point that if a right-of-way vacation is improved, that impairs access to property, which we've shown to you here tonight. This would impair access to this garage, for which the city just issued a building permit to rebuild in 2014. Then the city can be liable for damages for inverse condemnation. So, the city would run the risk of a damages claim, and for that reason. And then another final practical point for you here is if you look at the again the staff report at page 3 of 3, at the top of the page. In fact, I'll just put it up here. No, it's not readable. Sorry. But the staff report makes clear that the statute and city code requires that the abutting property owners pay the appraised fair market value of the right-of-way to be vacated. So here, my clients would have the lion's share of the vacated right-of-way, which they prefer to keep as city right-of-way. But if it was to be vacated, they would be forced to pay for quite a considerable sum of money, because I assume if you just look at assessed valuation on a pro rata per square foot basis, you're looking at requiring my clients to pay $10,000, $15,000 for the assessed fair market value for that right-of-way. Now, I can tell you under the statute, and I think the city attorney will confirm this, you cannot force them to pay that. So unless the other petitioners are willing and will tell you tonight that they're willing to pay all of the assessed valuation of that right-of-way for its vacation, then even if you were to approve this vacation, if that money doesn't come in the door, then the right-of-way vacation statute wouldn't be recorded. And without its recording, it's not effective. You're not vacating the right-of-way. So pay attention to that. That's another important practical aspect. There's no means for the city to force a property owner that doesn't want to vacate to pay a considerable sum of money for the fair market value of the right-of-way being vacated. So I think this all kind of rolls back and points to that if you have a right-of-way vacation that's not really supported by a good large majority of the property owners, and here measured by the assessed valuation, that it's really probably not wise for the city council to approve that. There's a lot of practical problems and some legal issues as well. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the list is Leslie Hassett. Certainly.
I can't see the screen.
No, there's all that glare. Now we need a bigger screen. I'll put it up there or something.
I don't know if it was easy.
We thought that we didn't use them, but that's not a good substitute actually for us.
I used them all the time in the planning commission.
We should bring them back. We used to have monitors here. The glass used to be clear. That's the way this was designed. We don't need that. We'll just watch it up there. But
One of those should be turned on that wall
So
facing.
we need it right here so we can see it and they can see it reversed.
And then just 80 inch.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Hassett. I'm here to ask you not to approve the vacation of the Smith Street right-of-way. I'm a neighbor in close proximity, and there are a number of reasons why I object to this. We have, as you can see on what I handed one side of the handout shows, as the attorney just said, this neighborhood is not cookie cutter. We don't have all the houses alike. These are some examples of the quaint houses that are in this neighborhood. Julian David's house is a beautiful house. I love driving by there every day. And I would like to see all of our neighborhoods, Smith Street, Taylor Street, Hull, be supported by the city to look like these homes. And a little bit of an aside, if you turn it over, when I go down Hull Street, close to Melcher, these are the houses that you see. And I have called and asked the city to do something to clean up these places and contact the owners. And there have been multiple complaints and reports, and nothing has happened. So that is upsetting and disappointing to me. And then to go back to this side, on the lower part, our houses are the ones that look like they do up above it, which includes my home. That's the way we want it. And this, I don't know what Mr. Preston plans to build. Apparently, he could possibly build 3 homes without vacating Smith Street, which you could argue, I suppose, would be better if you vacated it and you had 3 homes on more space. But I still object to that. If they want to build 2 homes on the current property without vacating, or they want to build 3 homes, I can't control what that person chooses to do. I did have a brief conversation with Mr. Preston on the street when I saw the public notice be put up, and I stopped and asked what was going on. And by the way, the public notice, the way it was taped to the board, the hearing date was not showing. I had to lift it up and stand on my head to see when the hearing date was. So, not very effective public notice. But at any rate, I talked to him, and he said that this property development was his future. And that you can understand someone's needing to make money to support their future. I understand that. But the rest of us, he can build this and make whatever profit he wishes for his future. The rest of us, if I choose to stay in this area, this is my future, the rest of my life and our neighbors' lives. So the people and the attractiveness of the neighborhood is one issue. But the other issue I really do care about is the wildlife. And I have seen on multiple occasions on my house, there are families of deer every year who come up from Grant Street, which is another city right-of-way that's platted but undeveloped on that hillside. And they come up the hillside, they walk down Taylor Street, and they go across Hull, and they go up to Julian David's property, and they bed down for the night, they graze there, they go across this piece of Smith Street, and they go down to Port Orchard Boulevard. And there's even, the city knows this because there is a sign. If you come from Lund or Tremont and you come down Port Orchard Boulevard, there's a little sign there that's a deer. Like, watch out for the deer crossing. And Smith Street is a primary way that they get down there. And I'm sure you know about stewardship, open space, habitat preservation. I'm not supposed to mention, but there are, I'm sure you all know, there are other large developments in the works in the neighborhood. And a concern of mine is that if you can't talk about other specific developments, we only tonight talk about Smith Street. But I thought of this analogy, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? How do you ruin the character of a neighborhood one development at a time? And if you can't look at the whole picture, you're going to look at vacating Smith Street. But there's Golden Pond, there's Eagle Crest, there's the Kitsap housing that put in development, there's another one for a large number of homes, and it just disappears piece by piece. And this Smith Street may not seem like a big deal, but if you consider These deer, they go from Port Orchard Boulevard across Smith Street, down Taylor Street to Grant Street. They go up Grant Street. They go up that dirt road across Melcher to the farmhouse that's there. There's a big buck that goes over to that area. So it's not just Smith Street. You look at the whole picture, and it impacts the wildlife, the habitat, and the neighbors who want, just like the attorney said, from the street, leaving it as it is, you get a sense of relief from compact development. I don't want to live in that. So please support us. There's many of us in the neighborhood, as he said, who don't have the courage to stand up here and talk. I don't want to be up here talking, but I came and I'm doing it. This is a long-term impact. Okay, you can think, well, you want to make way for this one development, but this is long-term for us in the neighborhood and for the wildlife. You can't undo this decision. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comment. We have next signed up is Tadina Crouch.
Good evening. It's been a while since I've been in front of you. My belief is that this change will negatively affect my community, and my community is Hull Avenue. The house to the west of this will not be able to use their garage if you grant what they're asking for. The lot is really, as it is plotted, was plotted for 2 homes, and in the past it had 2 homes, and that worked fine. I cannot imagine 3 homes being there side by side and taking away public property and giving it to a private person is beyond my belief. This is already a substandard street. We have cars speeding down there every day, potholes that don't get fixed, big trucks that come down, delivery trucks that I'm talking about, that don't slow down. And if you have 3 houses, you're going to have children. This is going to affect the quality of life for everyone who lives on that street. I went and talked to the neighbors, and they were appalled by what is being planned. And it breaks my heart to see people who have lived there most of their lives have so much change go on around them without them feeling that they have any way to have input. Some of them cannot get in a car and drive here tonight, or to come in this building and even navigate coming up here. I'm concerned about the effect this might have on our taxes and also the resale value of our homes as it is now. It's a quaint old neighborhood. I ask you not to change that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We have next signed up is Jennifer Richardson.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I happen to live directly across the street from the empty lot that is the purpose of this discussion for the vacation of this street. I've lived there for 20 years. And I've seen the 2 houses that were on those plots before. And one of them also used Smith Street to access their house. I've seen deer in there. I don't let my children up and down Hull Avenue because it is a bypass for every time Port Orchard Boulevard is shut down. We can count the times in May when we know the seniors have their licenses because they go racing up that street at 45 miles an hour. My children have grown up on this street. They can't ride their bikes on Hull Avenue. And if you add 3 more houses in there, we not only have 3 more families, but during the time that the builder is adding these homes, we have construction vehicles, we have open construction sites. that will affect not only our little world of Hull Avenue and Smith Street, but the green space that is Port Orchard Boulevard, which is directly behind these lots. Sorry, it's a little emotional. We've had deer. We've had owls. We've had rabbits. We've had common garter snakes. All of these animals are beneficial in our area. A lot of us do organic gardening. That is also beneficial in our area. And this is an older section of town. I know a resident just up the road that has lived there for over 50 years of her life. Watched her children go down on snow sleds in the wintertime in this area. To add 3 more houses and to give up this right-of-way not only impedes my neighbors, it impedes me, because now I have 3 more driveways coming out into the street, 3 more places that people that walk, jog, ride their bikes, drive their cars, more potential for accidents. This area can hold 2 more houses and fit in with the rest of Port Orchard. If you give up this street and he puts in 3 houses, I can't say it's going to be the same neighborhood anymore. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of our sign-up sheet. Is there anyone else wishing to testify this evening? Mr. Mathis.
I think when it's, well, if I fall down, I get another minute, don't I? Anyway, thank you, Council, Mayor. I would like to say, in my opinion, it would be a mistake to give up this right away. And the reason I say that is, why would you want to ever vacate something you already own? It's on the city tax rolls. It's not collecting any taxes. And it's part of our inventory. And how do we know when we might need to put a road down there? We might, but it'll be a lot harder if there's somebody else owns that property. So I really, truly believe there's no reason to give up a right-of-way, especially this right-of-way. What are some other things we might use if we don't put a road in there? Well, how about a pocket park? How about a picnic table and maybe a bench and, something like that? How about just leaving it green? And then it could be a trail, a green belt, a buffer. People could use it to get down to Port Orchard Boulevard. Birds and other wildlife could use it. How about a fire buffer between existing buildings? It just doesn't make any sense to me to give up something that we already own. Keep it in the inventory. Use it wisely. If we had enough little pocket parks around the city, we'll look a lot bigger and look a lot more friendly than we do right now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Others wishing to testify? Yes, sir. Please identify yourself when you step to the microphone.
Hi, my name's David Preston. I'm the one applying for the vacation. So, first, you can? Now?
Yep,
Okay,
got you now.
sorry.
You can raise the microphone if you'd like.
Okay. I've met Dave and Julie, talked to them one evening, and I understand their concerns. They've got a beautiful home. It's immaculate. They take great care of it, and I'm sure it's an inspiration for the neighborhood. And I'd just like to say we're just trying to fit in to that same program. I'm not talking about putting up 3 shacks with T111 on 4 sides and the cheapest thing that we can put in there. We're trying to be in like the $280 price range, which is it's a decent house for that area. A couple other things. The vacation, as it sits now, nothing that I'm going to do is going to go in there. It's just, it allows us to get over with one of our houses a little bit farther so we can fit 3 houses comfortably in there. But as I told him, he'd have 30 feet of it. I'd give him 15 more feet of it and allow the last 15 for a right-of-way. Because there's another property owner, Mr. George Wolf, and he can't be landlocked. So I've already offered him once it gets past Dave's, becomes George's territory. I offered that to him at no charge, because basically you're falling down over the embankment at that point, you know. The hill going down to the boulevard is unbuildable. There's no way you can get anything in there. So this, I don't know if you have this. While she's doing that, I'll go ahead and I've met with PSE on the site regarding that power pole, and it's no problem that she informed me we could feed 2 lots from that pole, and then the one that's farther north would come from across the street where it had come from before. So there's, I don't know if Brandy has this or not, but this is from the county. And originally, this was platted as 3 lots there, not 2. So we've already talked to the county on that. We can segregate it back to the original plat. So we're going to get 3 lots out of there, one way or the other, you know. And yeah, there it is. That's right. So yeah, so these 3 here are what we're talking about. That's how it was originally platted. And again, I assume that the city wants to get, it looks like it would be an urban growth area by just what I'm seeing there. So we thought it was a good place to put in 3 lots where you could put in 2. And I know the folks are concerned, and I would not build a house like what they're worried about. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm not a big builder that's trying to make a bunch of money. I'm just trying to put in something nice in there. I mean, you're not going to make a new house look like a 100-year-old house. I mean, it's not going to look exactly the same. So what do we do? Just no one can buy the property and develop it? I don't really understand that part. I live near the courthouse myself, and in that district there off of Sydney there, within a block of the courthouse. So I understand what their concerns are too. But like I said, there would be nothing in that right-of-way at all where it's pinked out there. So it's 60 feet wide, 30 feet Mr. Bryce would get at no charge to him. I would give him 15 more feet, and I would give him access to the final 15, so he wouldn't have any problems moving his boat in and out from where his property is. It's the last thing I want to do is hinder him. I told him that from the very start. But I understand their concerns. I really do. So, as I said, Puget Sound Energies, everything's good with them. And I would just promise that, you know, there's going to be a lot of hardwood and granite and stuff in these houses. They're going to be nice houses. They're not going to be like the ones in the picture. Promise it. I promise that. So, for now. Thanks for your time. Sure appreciate
your comments. Does anyone else wish to comment? Well, I don't believe so. Just one bite at the apple. Anyone else wishing to comment this evening? Okay, at this point, we're going to close the public hearing. Okay, we are on to our first business item, which is business item 7A, which is the very public hearing that we just had, which is an adoption of an ordinance accepting a petition to vacate a portion of right-of-way commonly known as Smith Street. Clerk Reinerson.
Mayor, may I step in?
Yes, ma'am.
Momentarily. The presentation and the letter from Mr. Wallace, this is the first I've seen it. There are some legal issues that he has raised, and I would recommend that the council not take action on this tonight, and that I review and give feedback on the legal points raised in executive session before this is brought back before the full council.
So you're recommending that we, is somebody going to make a motion to table this to a future council meeting?
You will still read the staff report.
I would move that we table business item 7A until the next council meeting.
Be the October 25th council meeting?
Yes.
Is there a motion to table this
I'll
to
second
October
that.
25th?
I'll
And a
second
second? Under discussion?
I wonder if there's value in going to work study as well for some of the questions that aren't privileged under executive session, so that maybe we should look at deciding in November after we have a work study. I think I have some questions that may not be privileged.
Well, and I think that we could probably have an executive session at the work study next week and discuss anything that is privileged then and anything that's not at the work study session.
I really don't see any difference between a work study or debating this right here at the dais. So if we can get those legal questions, if there's anything that's privileged, answered maybe at the work study, and then bring that back to the guests.
Just a timing, not a substantive matter at all, but just a timing issue. My clients are out of town in October, so if it could be heard back before you at open session in November, a meeting in November, that would be much appreciated.
With the approval of the second, I'd amend my motion to the first meeting in November then.
Okay, which is?
November 8th.
November 8th?
I won't be here.
So is that okay with the second?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to move this to the November 8th meeting. Any other discussion of that motion?
Well, I am concerned about that because I did want to weigh in and I will not be present on that November 8th. I guess.
But we would still discuss it in our work study.
We're still going to discuss it at the
Bring
work
it
study.
back to the agenda at the 8th, but we could discuss this and get some of the legal questions
Opinions,
answered
yeah.
next week.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. So we would add that to the work study to answer any legal questions, and then bring it back as an action item, potentially in November, at the earliest, November 8th.
I have one more comment. The petitioner had brought up several points that he was willing to yield to the property owners, such as access. And I think if we are going to discuss that, then maybe those promises should be in some sort of a substantive form in writing or something like that, so that we know that they're solid.
I think Sharon could weigh in on that at the work study.
Right, yeah, I think if that's something that the council would like to do and Mr. Preston is willing to do, then we can have him submit something in writing that the council could consider before making a decision on this.
Okay. Any other discussion to table this to November 8th? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We are to the next business item, which is let's see here. Item number 7B, adoption of an ordinance number 031-16, approving amendments to the 2013 Shoreline Master Program regarding redevelopment of shoreline properties and minor clarifications and corrections. Mr. Bond.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, members of council. The Community Development Department proposes several revisions to the city's 2013 Shoreline Master Program to enhance the ability of downtown waterfront property owners to redevelop and improve their properties. Several housekeeping measures are also proposed for ongoing consistency with the 2016 Comprehensive Plan, the city's permit processing regulations, the Washington Administrative Code, and recommendations from reviewing agencies. At the present, the Shoreline Master Program requires a 75-foot buffer from the shoreline for non-water dependent development on properties within the high-intensity shoreline designation, which includes most of the downtown waterfront. The 75-foot buffer applies to both new development and redevelopment, which means that if an existing building is demolished, all future development on the same site must be set back at least 75 feet from the shoreline. Downtown shoreline properties that are shallow or narrow and that have existing development located 25 to 40 feet from the shoreline may not be able to be redeveloped with an economically viable use if they are uniformly subjected to the existing buffer. The revisions will provide more options for property owners to redevelop within the same footprint as the existing primary buildings, with mitigation requirements to improve the adjacent shoreline conditions and to ensure no net loss of shoreline habitat or water quality. Existing legal development within a shoreline buffer will be considered conforming with the exception of appurtenant structures and non-water dependent overwater or in-water structures. The existing 75-foot buffer will continue to apply to undeveloped properties in the high-intensity shoreline designation. I should add that Carrie Salih, our planner who's worked on developing this code, is here tonight if you have any specific questions, and I'm happy to call on her if you have those questions. And the staff recommendation is for approval of Ordinance 3116. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council approve Ordinance 31-16.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion of this business item? Mr. Chang.
I guess my only concern is, do these have to be presented to the tribes or DOE? And if so, what's the timeline? What's their feedback?
Thank you. Excuse me, Carrie Salih, Associate Planner. The draft amendment was submitted already to the Department of Ecology, Natural Resources, Fish and Wildlife, and the Squamish Tribe, as well as the county and other interested parties. So we have received comments back from all of those and incorporated them into this document. And if this ordinance is approved, it will then be sent to the Department of Ecology for certification of the amendment. They have 60 days in which to do that, and they can provide additional comments and request additional changes.
Thank you.
And these regulations were modeled after what the Kitsap County currently has.
I would just like to express my appreciation for the change in the wording under the development standards for new piers and docks, where you added that if they were going to replace pilings, they could do it with a covering rather than replacing the. That's what this says, correct?
Yes, and that language was changed after consultation, follow-up consultation with state agencies.
Yeah, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, hearing none. We'll be voting on adoption of ordinance number 031-16, approving amendments to the 2013 Shoreline Master Program regarding the redevelopment of shoreline properties and minor clarifications and corrections. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to item number 7C, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Tom Hurstead Building Design, Inc. for the 2017 Prospect Street Design Project.
Okay, the city has completed its purchase of the 720 Prospect Street building, a building
Bon,
slated.
could you get a little closer to the microphone? We're just having a
Sorry.
little bit of trouble hearing you.
The city has completed its purchase of the 720 Prospect Street building, a building slated to become the new home of the DCD. The 720 Prospect Street building requires some minor modifications, including but not limited to constructing Americans with Disabilities access improvements, and this work requires building permits. In order to apply for building permits, the city requires construction plans drawn to scale. Using the consultant selection process described in RCW 3980, the city selected Tom Hurstead Design for the project as the most qualified firm. The project is described more fully on the attached scope of work. The project contract amount is not to exceed $5,000. Staff recommends approval of a resolution approving the contract with Tom Hurstead Building Design, Inc.
Mayor, I would recommend that we, or make a motion, move to adopt a resolution approving a contract with Tom Hurstead Building Design, Inc. for the 720 Prospect Street Design Project at an amount not to exceed $5,000.
Second it.
Any discussion? It's really a matter of even the city has to have designs and permits to do work in our buildings. So this is having Mr. Hurstead prepare those designs so we can get our own permits. So at this point, we'll be voting on approving a contract with Tom Hurstead Design, Inc., not to exceed $5,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the contract is approved. We are on to approval of change order number 2 to contract number 002-16 with PND Engineers, Inc. for the 2016 DeKalb Pier Phase 2 Construction Administration. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council members, on January 12, 2016, the City Council approved contract
C002-16 with P&D Engineers for the DeKalb Street Phase 2 construction project bid support, construction administration, and construction observation, which included the marine mammal survey, assessment, and construction observation. The project is substantially complete and is currently $2,000 under the approved 2016 budget authority. During the course of the construction activity for this in-water work, the contractor, Neptune Marine, LLC, encountered several days in which they are unable to work, with the consequences being an extended construction timeline, thereby resulting in additional construction inspection observation days absorbed by the engineer of record, being the construction inspector or P&D Engineers. As a result, P&D Engineers is significantly over their approved contract amount and is requesting a break-even change order in the amount of $12,000. Staff does recommend that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute change order number 2 to contract number C002-16 with P&D Engineers in the amount not to exceed $12,000 for the DeKalb Pier Phase 2 project bid support, construction administration, and construction observation. And I'd also like to point out on the sheet that's behind the change order in the memorandum dated September 27th, with this change order, the overall project will come in only at 1.2% over budget, which is for a $900,000 project. That's usually a pretty good target. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to execute change order number 2 to contract number 2-16 with P&D Engineers Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $12,000 for the DeKalb Pier Phase 2 project bid support, construction administration, and construction observation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Diener.
I'm just curious about what the delays were. Were they weather days or?
There were a number, well, I guess to answer your question fully, so the driving of the pile require marine mammal observations. So you had, and initially we were required to have 4 observers every day. We were able to get that reduced to 2, right, but not until they had burned through their budget. The other issues that were encountered were more tide related, in which they had scheduled days in which they thought they could drive pile, and due to reasons that they weren't able to. And so the issue really is that because we have to hire a consultant specialized in in-water work, the marine mammal observers come down from Port Townsend, and the construction inspectors come in from, I think they're from Everett. So they're getting a schedule from the contractor. They're driving that distance to work a full day, and due to circumstances of either tide or mechanical failures or having to cut a piling in half, which a number of days they had to take the 80-foot piling and cut it into a 30 and a 50. So you've got construction people that have come down for the day, and they're waiting while somebody has a blowtorch and they're cutting a 50 into a 80 into a 50 and a 30. So, I guess my thought is they came down expecting to be there full day, and they weren't there for a full day. And so the construction timeline was extended mainly due to the contractor's ability to get their work done due to just circumstances.
Thank you.
So remember, the change order isn't for the contractor actually doing the work. It's for the consultants that were doing this inspections.
Right.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay, hearing none. We'll be voting on approval of change order number 2 to contractor number 002-16 with P&D Engineers, Inc. for the 2016 DeKalb Pier 2 construction administration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to approval of change order number 3 to contract number 024-16 with Rice Fergus Miller for City Hall cost alternatives. And that's me, so I better get to the right page to be able to tell you about that. So At our last work study, I'll read the staff first. The City of Port Orchard is requesting Rice Fergus Miller to provide projection cost outlines related to City Hall development alternatives as presented in the conversation that I had with Steve Rice. The supplemental services agreement amends the previous agreement under the City of Port Orchard contract number 024-16. And so we've done the space analysis, and I presented that, and we also presented the report that showed the siding, windows, and roof needs to City Hall. And in our conversation there, Councilmember Cacciardi pointed out, well, if we do the minimum and only do what our cash flow can afford, we're not even taking enough of a bite out of the apple to take care of today's needs, let alone future needs. So I went back to Mr. Rice. So backing this up, so we've got one other change order that Mr. Dorsey has done with his change order authority, which was the energy audit, and that's ongoing. So there's still some money left in the budget, and Mr. Rice said that for $5,000, he could do basic. So there's 4 options really that we could pursue, and one of them is the do nothing option, which is just repair City Hall. And there's 3 potentially other options, and not all sites are equal. So one option is to add on to this building. A second option could be to build on the gravel parking lot across the street and potentially move courts and police over there. A third option could be the lot that we own out on Tremont, which is about 60,000 square feet. So Mr. Rice will give us and come to our work study and prepare a financial analysis of each one of those sites so that we can make a more informed decision on which direction we should proceed or decide to do nothing. Yes.
I move to approve change order number 3 to contract number 024-16 with Rice Fergus Miller for City Hall cost alternatives.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions? This matter?
This makes a lot of sense.
So just
to
trying to get all
information.
Yeah, we're trying to get all. Realistically, we won't get any of this work done in this next biennial budget, but it's getting all of our ducks in order and figuring out what direction we're going to travel 2, 3 to 5 years from now. So with that, we will be voting on approval of change order number 3 to a contract number 024-16 with Rice Fergus Miller for City Hall cost alternatives. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to approval of a revised job description for Public Works Permit Clerk. Mr. Bond.
Thank you. Recent personnel changes and retirements have provided the city with the opportunity to evaluate its operational practices related to Public Works and DCD permitting. The transition to SmartGov and the purchase of the 720 Prospect Street building contribute to the desire to become more efficient by standardizing the city's permit processing procedures. Currently, Public Works and DCD operate 2 independent permit processing centers. DCD has implemented a very systematic and digital approach to the intake, distribution, review, and issuance of permits. Public Works also has a system for permit processing, however, it is not fully digitized and in some cases relies on paper records. The department heads and mayor met to discuss the opportunities to create greater synergy between the 2 departments through the creation of a single permit center. By standardizing the permit intake and issuance process for both departments, the city can streamline records management and make full use of the SmartGov system. Building and planning each have a dedicated permit clerk focused on permitting, building permits, and land use permits, respectively. Public Works has 1.5 clerical positions, with neither position as a dedicated permit clerk. One of these positions is currently vacant. Public Works also has an office manager that supervises the Public Works permitting. The city proposes to revise the job description for this vacant position to focus on permitting. While this position would be funded by the Public Works Department, it would be housed in a new permit center at 720 Prospect Street with supervision by the DCD office manager. The Public Works permits would be integrated into the existing DCD permit process. In addition to standardizing the permit processes across departments, this would have the added benefit of cross-training the other permit staff for Public Works permitting. This redundancy would ensure that we have the ability to take in permits of any kind at any time, no matter whether people are sick, on vacation, or at lunch. It would also better ensure that managers and associate planners aren't interrupted from their current work by covering the front counter and phones during absences. The attached job description is a revised description which the city wishes to advertise in place of the existing Public Works clerk position. The staff recommendation is for the City Council to approve the revised job description.
So just to expand on this a little farther, if you'll notice that Mr. Vaughn's giving the staff report, but if you look at the job description, it points, it's a Public Works clerk, and the reports to Mark Dorsey currently in the organizational chart. The budget you'll be getting proposes moving this position across the street and reporting to the planning department. We're so close to the end of the year, and we have this job opening, we wanted to revise this job description to reflect what that person would be doing as of the first of the year, because by the time we post this job, recruit this position, and hire this person, we'll be within a few weeks, if not a month, of them moving to a different location and having a different supervisor. So we're trying to create a job description that is reflective of what it's going to be the first of the year and not as it is today. So it's kind of a hybrid there, you know, who it reports to now versus the first of the year, and trying to clean this, make it, I guess, transparent to the person that's hiring the job, what their job duties will be as of the first of the year.
Mayor,
Well, I move
to approve
then.
the Public Works permit clerk job description to replace the previous Public Works clerk job description.
You want to second that? You started to make that
I'll
motion.
second it, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Other discussion of this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
have any of these changes elevated the position such that we could expect it to generate a higher pay?
It is proposed to be in the same pay grade, but is also being reviewed as every other position in the city in the next item on the, is it the next item?
No, it was on the consent.
It was on the consent agenda, I'm sorry, the salary survey. So they're looking at all of these duties. And so, and this clerk position is intended to be three of the same in the proposed org chart as of the first of the year.
So I'm understanding that it's not anticipated to change short of the salary survey.
Correct.
Okay,
So that was a long answer to yes.
thank you.
Other questions?
Well, yeah, the motion is, I guess what I need clarification, we have two job descriptions in our packet. Is one the old one and one the new one?
Yes, the first one says Public Works Permit Clerk. The other one says Public Works Clerk. And so the permit clerk is the new position. The clerk is a more generic administrative position.
But they are both two positions.
Yeah, there's the Public Works Permit Clerk is the new job description to replace the other description that's in your packet.
Might have been one small mistake in that staff report. I believe, Mr. Dorsey, your staff is 1.6 and not 1.5. So, yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering, why would this be funded by Public Works then, if it's going under?
And that's something that after I wrote the staff report, Alan and I were working on. This is actually funded from current expense, but then bills the hours spent working on water sewer permits, stormwater permits back to the utilities. And so the current position is funded in Public Works. And so the structure, I think the cost allocation is going to be similar, but maybe not exact, depending on how much time they spend on working on which task.
Yeah, you raise a good point. There's accounting rules on this put out by the state through the budget accounting reporting system, so that your proprietary funds, your water, sewer, and storm, are protected from costs that would not really be to the utility. So in this situation where, as a public works employee, that's not an issue because they are employees of the utility. But when you move to a general fund organization, and it's spelled right out in the rules, Department of Community Development being one of those, then at that point we do have a cost allocation program that I know we worked through. The Council Finance Committee is very aware of it. And what we have to do each year is we have to go back and do an allocation process, rules and regulations, how you get that, to prove out that we're not overcharging the proprietary utilities. So in the case of DCD, for them to take this position, there will have to be a cost allocation process that we're working on now that will identify the cost actually that the work they're doing. And then as Nick correctly pointed out, general fund will pay for it as a general fund expense, but you then charge the utility for that work and reimburse yourself. So it's a process that we'll have to go through, and then each year the auditor looks at the cost allocation program. City Council can look at that. We have to prove it out each year, so you'll know exactly that you're not overcharging the utility.
So until the budget's approved, this employee will be hired and still paid for out of the Public Works Department. When we move across the street and when the budget is approved, this job description anticipates it becoming part of the DCD department, and that will be reflected in the org chart of the new budget being proposed. Hasn't been approved yet, so we can't do that next step. This job description is an anticipation of that change in the budget and that move across the street to the DCD permit department over there. Is that clear as mud?
Well, I'm just wondering, there's two different departments, and I understand this is an efficiency move, but will there be enough expertise in the planning aspect to be able to answer some of the questions that I imagine would come up with public works, stormwater permits and that sort of thing? How do you handle that? How much reference is there now with the clerk, say, for anything to do with public works? I mean, what will you do with questions you don't know the answers to? How do you work that out?
So I think the important thing is that this is the point at which the paper permit comes across the counter and where it is issued. And once it comes across the counter, what's going to happen is the applications get scanned, they get distributed to the technical staff who actually reviews the applications, and then there's a data entry process where you enter the permit conditions into SmartGov, and you ultimately issue the permit and you pick it up. And so that process is uniform across departments. This job description envisions a couple of public works specific tasks. I don't know if everybody noticed, but there's a water cross-connection control program as well as a grease trap monitoring program that is a task where letters have to be sent out annually. And so we're estimating that that's probably 2 to 3 weeks for each task annually to run that program. And that's something that we're hoping to train the new person on when they get hired, and before the end of the year when they're under Public Works, they can learn those tasks and be ready to go when that task comes up during the year. The other tasks, which are permitting centric, that is going to have to come from direction. We're asking for written procedures from the technical staff, the assistant city engineer, to provide kind of the guidelines of this is how this process works, and train this clerk essentially in the permits that they're going to be working with. But as far as answering questions, I think it's going to be pretty easy for us to get either Darren or Andrea on the phone, depending on whether it's stormwater or some other utility question, or Thomas, because typically when questions of a technical nature come in, one of those people comes to the front counter anyway to talk to somebody. It's typically not answered by the clerk.
We're really just half a block down the street.
I understand.
Between two functions. And really, this is the clerical position processing the paper at the counter, no different than it is today. The technical staff still does the technical work and answers those questions, which that won't change.
It's just that, as we're dealing with different developers and such, timing is everything, and I don't know. I was just wondering if this would cause any kind of delay, or I'm just wondering about the expertise, all of that. This is new. A lot of
Fair
questions.
question. Other questions? Okay, hearing none. We will be voting on the approval of a revised job descriptions for the Public Works permit clerk. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion's approved. Item 7G, approval of September 20th work study session minutes.
Mayor, I move we adopt the minutes from the September 20th work study.
Second.
And I think there's somebody that's going to abstain. Mr. Diener is going to abstain. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. And one abstention?
One abstention.
Okay, we are on to item 7H, approval of the September 27th, 2016 City Council meeting minutes.
Mayor, I move that we approve the September 27th council meeting minutes.
Second?
And I believe Councilmember Ashby will be abstaining on this one.
Yes, I will.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, and one abstention from Councilmember Ashby. We are on to item number 7I, which is discussion of AWC's 2017 legislative session priorities. And this is in your packet, this document here. Where was this presented to me at? Over at KRCC. And I don't see any of these issues being vastly different than our legislative priorities. And I just thought that maybe we should pass a resolution or just shake our heads, nodding approval that we allow our lobbyists to support these items, or maybe there's items on here you don't want supported. So is there discussion on that?
Does a resolution give it more weight than a nodding of our heads?
I would think so.
Well, the weight is to give our lobbyists permission to advocate for these items.
I think that's what I'm asking you for.
Doesn't require weight.
So a resolution is only going to go to our lobbyists. So I think a nod of the head would be adequate to be able to tell the lobbyists
Yes.
to go forth and support these.
You can support these items. So is everyone in agreement? Anything you have any objections to? I thought they were very similar to our priorities, which is comforting that the rest of the cities
To
in
make it
Washington.
clear, I would move that we authorize the mayor to communicate with our lobbyists to support these items listed on the AWC legislative agenda.
Second.
Motion is second to support these items. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I will communicate with Brianna.
I don't even have to nod my head.
Before you in December as the scope of services within her contract to make sure that these are covered as well.
Perfect. And I think maybe we should post this on our website too. So we are done with our business items. We're on to council committee reports. Mr. Clausen, the Finance Committee.
Yes, we have a Finance Committee meeting scheduled for October 13th at 7 p.m.
Yes.
Not a.m. as listed on the agenda.
I think I'm the cause of that problem, but I'm glad we brought it up.
Well, I'm glad Mr. Martin brought it up so he doesn't have to show up so early and the rest of us not being there, so.
It's true. I thought it was too.
Yeah, I have it all, actually, because I have a medical, just a checkup tomorrow, and I've got everything laid out already, so we're ready to go if you showed up.
Okay. We are on to Economic Development and Tourism. Councilmember Ashby?
Yes, we met yesterday. We had a very light agenda. Our first item was a discussion on an informal survey I did of downtown businesses. I do this every year after the summer holiday to find out the feelings of the downtown merchants regarding the foot ferry and the importance to them. And this year I added a couple other questions. One question was their hours of operation, and then the other question was if the having the restriction of retail only on the ground floor within the central DOD was impactful to their business or how they felt about that. So I put the results of the survey in just a little chart. We looked at it, and we will be bringing that forward to the work study next week. So it'll be available then. One of the results of our discussion yesterday is I'm going to look into educational opportunities, perhaps educational presentations or workshops or seminars for some of our downtown merchants, and understanding the retail climate and some of those. And we'd be looking for partners, primarily the Chamber of Commerce or the Port Orchard Bay Street Association. We would not be administering that, but we would be offering some facilitation in that. And then we discussed, and we're very happy to say, our special events ordinance, which Brandy in the clerk's office has been working on since first quarter of 2014, and it is going to be coming before work study next week. And basically, the events ordinance will spell out the application process, requirements, fees, and deadlines, and standardize our special events process. So that's what we talked about. And our next meeting will be November 14th at 9 o'clock here in council chambers.
I was just going to say, with some of those seminars, I know KETA offers a lot of those services as well.
Yeah, we were going to check that out, see what KETA has. There's some other programs that are available out there, and see if I'm going to schedule a meeting with the Chamber and POBSA and see if they think it would provide value. Right. Yeah, and just to expand a little bit, there's been studies that show that most of the retail activity happens on weekends and after working hours for most people, and most of our businesses downtown close at 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and so they're missing the primary retail opportunities. And anyway, we're going to see if we can provide some education down there to perhaps. And the education will be provided through all of the city businesses, not just downtown.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Utility Committee.
We meet next Monday, October 17th at 9:30 a.m. here, City Hall.
Okay.
On to Sewer Advisory. Next Wednesday, October 19th, 6:30 p.m., and that will be at the...
West Sound Utility District office, it says.
Right, so it's listed wrong here.
No, it's at West Sound because it's the budget.
I know, but it's listed in the wrong address.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Wrong box.
Star.
Yeah.
Oh, it says West Sound Utility District.
I know, but I went down there for the asterisk.
Yeah.
So is that the one on Jackson?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
Skateboard? Yeah.
Yeah, but your asterisk with the address is wrong.
I've been to the wrong place before.
Oh, yeah.
It was embarrassing.
I've had that too.
And I was late.
I think it's happened to all of us.
Yep.
Okay, we're on to land use.
We're scheduled to meet October 19th at 7:30 a.m. here at City Hall.
Is there anything to report for lodging tax?
We're meeting with applicants next Monday starting at 5 p.m. There are at least 4, and I haven't picked up. There's 13. Okay. Well, there were 4 last week, and the deadline was Monday. So.
Wow.
Okay. And it's almost Christmas. What's Chimes and Lights doing?
Ooh, a lot. Our next meeting is Monday, October 17th, 3:30 p.m. here, City Hall. And specifically, we're working on our brochure. This is a little version, but we're nearly done. It's going to press very soon. We just have to do some proofing, and it's moving along well. There'll be more of a report next week, next time.
Okay, we've got a work study next week, and Brandy, we're adding one more item, which was this land use issue that was before us tonight. So we are on to the mayor's report. 737 Bay Street, see the sidings finally all done. The roof was repaired on the overhang. Pressure washing and painting is what's left, and a tenant would be nice too. So, the website's up and running. Hats off to Janine, who's in the back room. She did all of, I would say, 99% of the work on that website. So she's really did a good job. She's hiding behind the wall there. But it is something that can be very fluid. If you see things that's missing, you want added. Janine has that capability and the training to do that. We don't have to go out and hire somebody to make changes to it. So it's not overly complex and fancy, but it's very practical for our needs. And at $140 a month, I really like what it costs. So that's up and running, and obviously you know that if you downloaded your packets because you had to get it from there. Last Friday, Nick and I went on a little road trip up to Lake Forest Park and got some FaceTime with Monsieur, and we toured Bothell too, and we presented some ideas for master planning downtown. We really didn't get a whole lot of traction, but can't be told no if you don't ask. So
Did you tour with
no.
Monsieur? Okay.
Oh, no. We thought we were going to catch one boat because of morning traffic, and we caught an earlier boat, so we had some time to kill. So we drove. Bothell and Lake Forest Park aren't very far apart, and I'd been over to Bothell once before, and there's a McMinimans and some redevelopment going on there, and we just kind of wanted to see what it looked like and what they were doing. A lot of construction, that's for darn sure. I'd like to tell, I know you guys should all know that KRCC's legislative reception is November 10th at Clearwater Casino. Sure hope everybody plans to attend. You need to let Brandy know because the city will pay for your ticket. So I think it's an important networking event with the other city council members in the county commissioners, and obviously our legislative delegations. So it's time to get some FaceTime and with all those folks. So hope you can all make it. Newsletters in your mailbox, and wayfinding signs are under construction, and Nick thought it would be a great idea and agreed that we should have a sticker on the kiosk downtown that has a map, a walking map of downtown, and the transit map on it as you got off the ferry dock. The company that's constructing those signs, though, wanted, obviously they don't want to be in the sticker business. A 3-foot by 1-foot sticker for the design and printing was going to cost $5,000. We thought that was an awful lot of money. So for less than $500, somebody here local is going to be able to do that for us, which is nice because as the businesses change or the transit route changed, very inexpensively we could have another sticker produced and put a new one on there. So that's all I have.
Do you want to remind us about the homeless meeting?
Homeless meeting is here next Tuesday.
4 p.m.?
4 p.m. and I think at 3 p.m. there's the Development Regs Committee. Is it 2 p.m.?
2 o'clock.
Okay.
Development Regs is at 2, and the other one is at 4.
Is at 4? And they're all, and then we've got our work study. So all 3 meetings are in a format that we're using those same tables. So that was the thought process there. Mr. Dorsey?
I have nothing.
Nothing on Tremont, even? Bay Street Pathway, nothing?
They're just all in process. I know that the TIB is this week is the selection jury, and they'll be making recommendations to the board. So we're just in wait and see mode.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Martin?
A couple of things. I want to thank the council's attention tonight at the revenue sources hearing. I know it's a lot of material, and it's not the most exciting material. When I went to the county in 1989, the county budget was $20 million. 10 years later, I had the chance to go to the state, and at that time, their budget was $20 billion. And I was really proud tonight to think that when I came here, as small as we had and the challenges we have tonight, that I was able to present to you a revenue sources hearing that would take you to $20 million. And that's a big accomplishment. That's a lot of money. And we have an opportunity here to do it right for the public. And with that, I think that there's a lot of opportunities here, and I'm really proud to have taken you to a biennial budget with the resources there that you work so hard to acquire and have the opportunity to put to work. Then on a more serious note, I would like to say there's one council person I've been really impressed with that was new to the council, but tonight I was just terribly disappointed in, and that's Sean Chicardi. And the reason for that is on the implicit price deflator. I just could not believe that he didn't say, well, Alan, can you give us a simple explanation of the implicit price deflator? Because as I already, so if you would just like to ask that question, you could redeem yourself.
So I Googled it, actually, did some research, and it was much more complicated than the version you gave. So if there is a simple answer, I would love to know.
Well, simply put, the implicit price deflator is a measure of a current year price of a good to its price in some past base year. Say, for example, the same computer bought today, one that was computing with the same power, may have inflated or deflated in price according to this calculation. In the case the same computer costs less, price deflation. In the case the same computer cost more, price inflation.
Simple.
There you go. You're redeemed.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan.
Mr. Bond.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, Sharon?
I have nothing tonight either. Thank you.
Brandy?
I just have one thing. So you guys will probably be seeing emails coming soon from an organization called MailChimp. And so what staff and I have done is we have found a better way to streamline city news information out to the public. Currently, the public contacts city staff and asks them to be added to the agenda distribution list. And so what we have done is broken that down into 4 segments. And so when they sign up for MailChimp, that they will be able to click on the 4 different types that they wish to get news from the city. One is agenda packets, committee packets, that type of thing. Public notices, press releases, that type of thing, job notices. And then the fourth one is RFPs or requests for proposals or qualifications. So if they're just interested in working for the city, then they can sign up and get all the notifications, where if somebody's just interested in city business and want to get the agendas, they can just get that as well. So that should be rolling out probably next week sometime. So we'll go ahead and self-enroll all the council members. If they're on the current agenda distribution now, they will be on MailChimp, but you just have to physically go into that email account and accept it. So see that here pretty soon. And again, we will send you an email reminder shortly before we do that, so you can keep an eye out on it. And then we will send an email out to the public as well, letting them know that they can choose the options of what type of documents and information they want to receive from the city. Other than that, that's all I have.
Nice. Taking advantage of technology, so it's wonderful. So, you said
Know
one.
where it is located. So if you go to the New Cities website, all the way at the bottom, down in the middle, it'll say subscribe here. And you just put in your email, and then it'll send you an email notification. You have to accept it, and we believe at that time is when you're going to be able to check your 4 options. So we're still streamlining that process, but once we know how to do it, we will relay it into an email to the council and the public.
Okay, thank you. We're to our second citizen comment period. Anyone wishing to comment? Oh, go ahead, Jerry. Bobby?
Bobby Stewart, 801 Bay Street. I just wanted to thank the council who were able to come down to Ladies' Night Out. I realize the men maybe didn't want to do that, but it was very successful, and I was very proud of our city because there was only one business that didn't stay open, and she was able to have someone out in front of her business, and we ran out of bags in less than an hour, 825 of them. So I felt that the town worked as a team, and almost, I think everyone gave out some real good things, and it was a very good event. The public market was wonderful. It was just filled with vendors, and the firemen were outstanding with our court. They handed out all the bags, and they really did. Even Chief Wright was there walking up and down the street handing little bags to ladies. Very proud of him. So just thank you for that, and thank you to the town for really getting behind it and working hard at it. So I'm exhausted, but other than that, it was great. Thank you.
Sarmer, go ahead.
I was just going to comment on driving up where the Smith property is. I saw the largest buck I've ever seen in my life, and it was pretty impressive for being inside our city limits. So it's one thing, it was several years ago, but I couldn't believe that an animal that big and with that, the number of, going out on its antlers was inside our city limits. It was pretty spectacular. Another thing is on the enforcement officer, he came down our back alley and wanted all of us to cut back. And we've all done it except for the city property hasn't been taken care of. So maybe if we have to take care of our property, the city should have to take care of theirs. Just as a little side comment.
Fair point. Other comments? Seeing none, I think our meeting's adjourned.